How nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Hi, Enderby. Hello. Yes, it's about 5 years since we last met.
It's a long one.
Yes, it is. We did, yes. And another time we went into the terrace and you gave us tea, which will remain in my memory forever. And you were so encouraging, so thanks a lot.
Hello, I've not met you before. I'm Pat Canty from North Devon.
Hello, I'm Margaret Evesham. I was at that dinner. Wonderful, yes. Wonderful to see you all again.
It's lovely that you could come today. We've had such great fun.
Yes.
Going over the memories. And what's fascinating is everyone's got a slightly different memory.
Oh, I'm sure they have. Yes. Yes, I know.
How this all began was that the MSF and the officer Donna Haber was very concerned because she felt you were underpaid in comparison to the male-dominated professions. And she had pursued over 2 or 3 years pay claims to try and get you a better pay packet, pay deal. And she failed.
You know, I'd been managing the service, I'd seen speech therapists, poorly paid. Some of them were all right because they got rich husbands. And some of them didn't go into the union because of that. But when they were looking after a family, single parents, for instance, and they got a mortgage and they got children, and they had to find childminders, they were very poorly off.
I was at that time heading quite a large department that was doing quite a lot of research, a lot of personal clinical responsibility, and my psychologist friend, great chap, but he had much less of a portfolio.
Do you remember the difference in pay in those days?
I think, now you'll probably correct me, I think it was something like £7,000.
You were on about 11,000 at the time?
Yes, that's right.
£11,000 per annum? And your comparator was on 17, 18, something like that?
Yes.
Enormous amount of money.
And he never bought the drinks.
What we had in Pam Enderby as the lead applicant was the most articulate spokesperson for her profession, which was a way of disarming the opposition. Because when you support an equal pay case, you get sort of the official opposition, which is the respondent defending the claim, but you can also get quite a lot of opposition from the media. Yeah, if they think you are trying to threaten male status and male earnings or so on, or if they think, that it's completely out of order. I mean, the scare stories around equal value when equal value came in was that you would get, the cleaner in a bank claiming equal pay with the chief executive, and so the media is always ready to leap in, and ridicule what you're doing. And with Pam Enderby as the lead spokeswoman, there was absolutely none of that. There was no question, but that this was a highly professional woman doing a very important job.
I think, looking back on it, we were all fairly naive, really. You have to put it in its political context. In the time 1986, Margaret Thatcher had been in power for 7 years. And from her point of view and the Tory government's point of view, there was no question that this case could be successful because of the knock-on consequences for other female-dominated groups within the health service. But I think we were naive about the extent to which the government would defend the claim. And indeed, when it started off in 1986, there were 3 test cases. There were no other cases other than these test cases. 18 months down the line, when we realised that even though we'd had a first victory in the divisional court over a technical issue in the claim, even though we realised we were having success, the government showed absolutely no sign of wanting to negotiate or talk to us about the claim whatsoever. And so at that stage, we thought, well, the way to put pressure on them would be to launch lots of claims and then leave them in abeyance pending the outcome of the test cases. And we thought this would really put pressure on the government. I mean, looking back, I think it was quite naive. But 1,500 claims, further claims were put in, and the government said, well, that's all very interesting and fascinating. We're going to carry on doing what we're doing, which is to defend this case. And that's what they did.
And my husband kept on sort of saying, are we going to lose the house over this? Because despite assurances, you know that law costs a lot of money. And the union weren't the biggest union in the world, and speech therapists weren't a large union group within that. So I constantly had this fear of, am I going to have to pay an awful lot of costs?
The unions at this stage were suffering enormously from loss of membership. So they were all in great financial difficulties, and particularly MSF at this time was in financial difficulties. So from their point of view, it would have been easy to say, well, you've lost at the tribunal, you've lost at the next stage up at the Employment Appeal Tribunal, we've put a lot of money into this, we've had a real go, but we can't afford to do it anymore. That would have been a very simple thing for them to do.
It was one of our keynote case. It was an important case to the union. So we didn't wobble because it was important to us. And also because we'd got the EOC backing. If there'd been a wobble, I would be able to say, well, the EOC would be terribly disappointed if you withdrew.
They did an excellent job of bringing those women together in the first place, and an excellent job of never losing them throughout the entire 15 years. And I think from starting off from a position where it was a cause for a small group of women, it became a cause for the entire profession. And that's down to the union. That was not down to the EOC. We could not possibly have done that.
To us, it seemed pretty simple that here was a whole category of female-dominated work being paid less than male-dominated work for the same employer, and the only justification that the employers could put forward was not really market forces, though they tried that a bit. It was separate collective bargaining. And we couldn't see how the fact that the employer and the trade unions had, as it were, had separate watertight compartments in bargaining could justify by itself the pay difference. I think that people don't understand sufficiently that the European Court of Justice and actually the European Court of Human Rights together have empowered women and men in cases involving discrimination.
They said that where you have a predominantly female group undertaking equal work to a predominantly male group, or male groups in this case, and the female group is paid significantly less than the male groups, that is a classic case of sex discrimination in pay.
In fact, when the settlement came through, I don't know if you remember this, Sarah, but when the settlement came through and there was a bit of a quibble about the amount, and it was, to me, it was huge. It was a vast amount of money. It still is. And I wobbled about it, and I said, I feel really guilty about taking this. You know, this wasn't for this. It was for the profession. And you said, shut up and take the money. You can't run a health service on the backs of underpaid women.
It led to the first fundamental review of pay in the health service based on equal pay. This was the first time the government had tackled the question of equal pay across the whole of the health service, and it had led to Agenda for Change, which has had enormous benefits for female-dominated groups within the health service.